Hello viewers, today we're going to work on this BMW F15, which is the X5. It has once again the N57, and I'm going to show just a brief video of the owner which he sent me just before he contacted me about the issue that this car has, and as we're going to see, it's not going to be good. So the issue is a knocking sound inside the engine, so we're not sure what is going to be the case. So that's why I'm going to remove the engine. We're going to put it on the engine stand, and we're going to see what is the condition inside, the bearings, the chains, everything, because actually the owner was planning to do this main service previously, but it was the holidays, Christmas and New Year's, and he decided to leave it after the holidays, but the engine didn't last this long. So that's why now we're going to remove it. I already start removing stuff. Okay, so the engine is out. I'm going to start disassembling little by little. I have seen something strange. As we can see here, the exhaust manifold bracket is completely broke down. It should be like that. So yeah, it should be like that, as we can see here. So something happened, but not sure what. And I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to replace this for sure. It's stainless steel. I'm going to continue disassembling. We have some oiling underneath here, probably because of the o-rings of the turbochargers, which we're going to replace. Probably going to replace the vacuum lines. Now I'm going to remove the DPF so to be able to install the engine stand too. And yeah, pretty much little by little I'm going to start preparing the engine to get it on the engine stand, so to be able to check what is happening inside. I have already removed the hoses for the automatic transmission, which we're going to service also after that. And after a little bit more disassembly, the engine is finally on the engine stand. Once again, if you want a plate like this to attach your N57, you can look on the description below. I'm selling these plates. You're just going to need to do a sleeve to attach it to your engine stand. So now I'm going to continue disassembling to see what's happening inside. I'm going to remove all the accessories, everything around the engine, and we're going to see how are the bearings and the chains. So let's get wrenching. The valve cover is removed, and actually the engine looks pretty decent inside. It's pretty clean. I have installed the timing tool on the camshafts and on the crankshaft, which is for working the flywheel. I have started removing the bolts, but before that I decided to check the timing. So as we can see, it's worked on the flywheel, and the timing tool is pretty much flat on the both sides. Yeah, here is kind of hard to see it on the cylinder head as also here. And yeah, the swag on the timing chain actually is not so big. So I'm not sure is this really the original timing chain. When I start removing the parts, I'm going to see for some dates, but it's not so crucial that I was thinking about, because this car was, I think, on 290,000 kilometers, which is a lot. So I'm going to see is this the original timing chain. Okay, so the open is removed. This is what we have found inside. As we can see, there is a lot of metallic debris inside. The thing doesn't look very good. Let me show you what we have found out. So you can clearly see the cover of the rest of the con rods, this one, and pretty obviously this is much more darker than the rest. So now let me try to show you. Hopefully you guys are going to hear it. So it's pretty obvious where is the problem. For sure we're going to have a failure con rod and a journal. So now I'm going to continue disassembling and see what is the full damage which happened. As we know, on these engines, most of the time, 90% of the time, the issue is the main bearings, but in this case it's the con rod ones. So yeah, it's going to be really bad news for the owner. But before that, let's see what is the total damage of everything. So I'm going to remove everything. Okay, so the timing chain cover is removed, and as we can see here, the timing chain components are original. So this is 200 This means that this timing chain guide is 214. So yeah, this is the original timing components of this car, and actually the wear is not so significant as we can see on this chain, which stretch out most of the time. And yeah, as we can see, the metallic debris are everywhere. So if we use this cylinder block, we need to figure out how to clean it as good as possible. Okay, so pretty much I have removed all the bearings, and while I was removing them, I saw something really interesting, which most of the time I see, that the conrod bearings were like a brand new ones. Like most of the time on these N57 engines and N47 engines, the conrod bearings never wear out. But in this case, we had only one spun bearing on, I believe this was number 3 conrod. So what is the explanation that you're going to spun out only one bearing and all the rest are going to be like brand new ones? The only explanation is insufficient oil supply to the corresponding conrod journal, which is this one, and yeah, it looks totally gone. And the oil supply for this conrod bearing comes from here, the axial bearing of the crankshaft. And once again, as we can see and as we can expect, the axial bearing was spun out. So yeah, it was spun out on 90 degrees, which means it was blocking the oil supply to the conrod. So the issue was not the conrod bearings, but the main bearings. And yeah, this bearing is here, which once again failed. As we can see, the other bearing, once again, this is how a spun bearing looks like. So yeah, once again, the issue is the main bearings, it's not the conrod bearings. This is just a cause because of the main issue, which is this. Once again, we have 2 main and 1 conrod spun bearings, which means this crankshaft in this cylinder block is going to go to a waste. So yeah, I'm not going to repair it or anything like that. I'm going to talk to the owner. He's going to decide, of course, but if he wants to repair it, I'm not going to search for a workshop which is going to do it. I have enough experience with this. I know how reliable it is. In my experience, it's not, so I'm not going to do it. If he wants and finds a workshop which can repair the cylinder block like it is right now, he can take it there and do it. I'm just going to reassemble it back together without any guarantee, of course. But in my opinion, we're going to need a new cylinder block, new crankshaft, 1 conrod, probably with a piston, and yeah, pretty much this is going to be with this. So now actually I'm going to remove the crankshaft, going to show you how everything looks like, the rest of the bearings. But yeah, this is how total damage looks like. Of course I'm going to remove the camshafts and stuff, the cylinder head, to see how they look like. Probably they're going to be fine. But yeah, the cylinder block is total failure. And with the crankshaft removed, as we can see, the typical main bearings were, and the conrod bearings once again like brand new ones, as on every N57 engine. And yeah, this I cannot even remove this bearing, it's so stuck in the conrod. Yeah, here we have 1 spun bearing, here, and here is the other spun bearing. Let me show you. So this is all the main bearings which spun out. The axial and the end bearing, which is on the auxiliary side, not on the timing chain side. And this is the crankshaft. So this is where one of the bearings spun out. So let me show you how the journal looks like. So yeah, and here is the conrod journal, which is much worse, and here next to it is the axial bearing journal, as we can see. So yeah, all the rest of course are looking perfect, but here and here we have a wear for sure. Also on the cylinder block tunnel, main bearing tunnel, and of course on the con rod. So yeah, this is it for now. I'm going to remove the cylinder head to check the camshafts. As I just quickly check what is the condition of the oil pump inside with failed bearings and engine. So this is the gears inside. Actually, I was expecting to be much more worse than this. Let me see where was the worse. Some points are kind of bad, but still it's not so bad that I was expecting. But let me see, there were a few points which were kind of bad. Here, as we can see, it's not so smooth. It's going to be hard to see it on camera, but it should be smooth. It should not have any scarfing or stuff fittings, and on some points the smoothness is gone for sure, as we can see here. And on the body inside is pretty rough, so we have a lot of scarfing in the body of the oil pump. And if we check the notorious failure point of this pump, the control oil pressure valve, it has some debris here, metallic debris inside the chamber of the valve. So for sure, yeah, this is the vacuum pump side. As we can see, once again we have some scarfing on it, and actually this is the only gasket which is holding the oil to not drop from here, to not leak from here, and yeah, this gasket is getting brittle. Once again, this is not sold from BMW, you cannot replace this gasket. I just wanted to show you how bad it is, the oil pump, when a bearing fail. So yeah, not so bad that I was expecting, but for sure it's not for reusing. Okay, so a little bit of update. After searching for a lot, the owner finally managed to find a, let's say, new engine, because this is almost a new engine. This engine is at around 20,000 kilometers, which should be almost a new one, which is kind of strange, because if you look at from behind, we have oil leak from this bolt. So I'm going to try to undo it and redo the thread opening here, so to remove the spillage from here, because if we install it like that, he's going to have an oil leak from here. Probably going to try to do the same on this bolt, but there is always a risk when doing this, so you're going to need to undo it and remove it just a small amount, so to be able to remove the threads, and after that reinstall it, because if you completely remove it, tensioner is going to push up the guide here, and that you're not going to be able to install the bolt. So you're just going to need to remove just a small amount, so to clear up the threads and put new thread locker and tighten up the bolt once again. So this engine is from 4 series. There is some difference with the X5. Like the DPF is totally different. As we can see here, it's with 2 nuts, and on the X5 is with a clamp. What else is different? Yeah, the wiring. Let me show you the wiring. So this is the wiring of the 4 series. The positive wire is totally different. Also the ECM sits on totally different place. Now I'm going to check the rest for differences, but for sure there is some. Also the wiring for the injectors, I think, are different, because the wiring on the X5 goes through here, and on the 4 series is like that. So I'm going to compare it to see, are we going to need to replace also this wiring. If we need to replace it, I'm going to need to remove the pipes for the injectors. Yeah, I'm going to need to retrieve the coats on the injectors, so to be able to coat them back in the ECM, because these are different injectors. And yeah, now little by little I'm going to start putting everything back together. Yeah, I'm going to remove the intake manifold to check how it looks inside. So if it's on 20,000 kilometers, it should be pretty clean inside. Also the swerve flaps should not have any swag, but we're going to check that later on. Okay, as we can see, we have decided to disassemble a little bit the engine after seeing how the open look like, and yeah, I have disassembled pretty much a lot. The open, yeah, this is the open which we are planning to use, because the open on the X5 and the 4 series is different, especially the attaching of the support of the CV axle. That's why we're going to install the F15 open, if the owner decided to use this engine, of course, because let me continue. So I have removed pretty much everything around the engine, let's say, to uncover the chains. And as we can see, I have removed two big end bearings and two main bearings caps, and here it is. Once again, this engine should be on 20,000 kilometers, so it should be pretty much like a brand new one. Yeah, internally it looks clean. I am not debating about this. Let me show you on the camshaft side. It looks pretty clean. We were discussing that probably this engine have never been serviced, because as we know, new cars are recommending 30,000 kilometer service intervals, which is crazy, but probably this was the first oil which the engine came out with. So here is the big end bearings. As we can see, I have removed the cap on the timing chain side cap and the axial bearing, the two ones which most of the time fails. And if I had removed only this on the timing chain side, I was not going to be able to see the wear on the axial bearing on the main cap. As you can see, it doesn't look very good. The big end bearings, they look decent, but still on these engines, as we know, the big end bearings are never the issue. And still we have so small amount of wear, especially on the bearing, which wears out more on the con rods. As you can see, it's not something crazy, it's going to run, but for sure we have some wear. And as we can see here, we have much more. The bearing is getting darker, and on 20,000 kilometers this is not normal for sure. So the journal, it has some small amount of scratching. This is the journal which is for the axial bearing here. So for sure we have some metal shavings inside the engine for some reason. And the other thing which I found out is that it is good that we have opened up the engine and we didn't just install it directly, is that I have found out some broken rocker arms. So let me try to show you. As you can see, this rocker arm here, how it's curved and how it should be straight like this up here. So if you look on the valve side, as you can see, we are missing the rocker arm like here. I have found out on one more place, yeah, here the rocker arm is completely missing. As we can see, here is the hydraulic lifter, and here is how it's supposed to be covered with the rocker arm. Also on the valve side, we don't see anything. So for sure, this engine have seen some interference inside the chamber. I don't know what happened. Maybe broken chain, they replaced them, I don't know, or hydraulic hit. But for sure we're going to need to remove the cylinder head and see what is happening if the owner decides to keep this engine. But for now I'm going to wait him to approve the disassembly, to continue to disassemble the things. But if it was me, probably was going to return the engine if it was an option. Okay, so probably, I don't know, maybe month or two. Once again, the good old X5, I don't know, probably for 5 months this car is sitting on this lift. This is the next engine on which we're going to give it a try to see, hopefully, is it going to run on this car, because right now, yeah, as you can see, it looks pretty much as a brand new one. Yeah, except all the markings from the junkyard. But right now we're going to once again put it on the engine stand. We're going to remove everything. We're going to check the bearings, we're going to check the timing chains, we're going to check pretty much everything, so to be 100% sure that this engine is going to run in this car without any issues. Because as we know, previously the seller of the previous engine was claiming that the engine was between 20 or 30,000 kilometers, and it was so bad that I cannot even describe it. This engine, the seller is claiming that it's on 100,000 kilometers, which it looks like that it's possible to be by the looks of it. I don't see some silicone getting out of the covers everywhere like on the previous engine, so I don't think this have been opened up previously. As you can see, we don't have any leaks from these two bolts as on the previous engine, which is holding the guide on the timing chain here. So probably this is going to be an opened engine, so we're going to open it up for the first time, and hopefully this one is going to be okay. And the good thing is that this is once again from X5, so hopefully we're not going to need to do anything additionally, so to be able to fit it in this X5. So no, this is not the engine that I showed you before a second. This is a different engine, once again N57, but this is from a different car. This is from F12, and this engine actually is on 210,000 kilometers. And This is the first bearing on serpentine belt side. So yeah, here the bearing got damaged. Yeah, it didn't spun out. So the owner was kind of lucky because the journal on the bearing is still good, and actually the journal on the bearing itself is not so bad also. So probably this engine is going to be savable. We're going to see, I'm not sure. The rest of the bearings look kind of okay, except the last one, of course, on the timing chain side. But yeah, once again guys, better service your engine on time, because as we can see on the owner with the X5, this can get really costly and time consuming. So when you hit 200 or even 180,000 kilometers, do your bearings and timing chains, because if you see that in your engine, you're going to have a lot of bad days after that. I guarantee you that, financially of course. So just wanted to show you one more N57 on even less mileage, and once again the bearing is bad. And yeah, as you can see, the engine is pretty clean inside. The owner was taking care of this engine. Yeah, we don't have the record of the engine before he bought the car, because right now he's changing the oil with good quality oil on low mileages, not some bizarre 20 or 30,000 kilometers. But we don't know what the previous owner have done, how he has serviced it. Once again, the big end bearings on the conrods are looking like brand new ones. This is on the caps, as you can see, but once again the main bearings are gone. So yeah, I'm going to measure the tunnel. We're going to see if it's okay, plus the journal on the crankshaft, this one when the bearing was bad. If everything is okay, we're going to throw up a new bearings and hope for the best, because once again these engines are getting ridiculously expensive, because everyone is searching for them because they fail all the time. And we're going to assemble it. But now let's continue with the other engine, which the seller stating that it's on 100,000 kilometers. It should look like much better than this, because once again this is on the double mileage of the other engine. Just wanted to show you one more almost completely failed N57. Just to show you how I'm checking the crankshaft. Is it straight? I think this was run out the right name for this testing. So I'm checking the end of the crankshaft where the bearing was bad, and I'm just rotating it on this V-shaped stance. So let me show you the dial gauge indicator. So I'm going to show you that I'm rotating the crankshaft, and by memory I think the spec was around 0.002 millimeters run out. So let's see how much we have. As you can see, the dial gauge is pressed. Just to show that I'm rotating it. I cannot focus and show that I'm rotating it, but you need to trust me. Okay, let's give it a try like that. As you can see, it's perfectly straight. So the crankshaft should be fine, at least on this engine. Just wanted to show you how I'm testing it for any disruption. Okay, so we're going to put aside this engine and we're going to continue with the one which we're going to install in the car, as you can see pretty obviously with the blue markings on it. I have almost disassembled everything. As you can see, I have removed the intake manifold. Once again, this engine should be at roughly 100,000 kilometers, and as you can see, we have a lot of sluggish on the cylinder head ports. I'm going to try to clean it as good as possible. Inside, it looks kind of clean. The engine does look so bad. And yeah, on this mileage, you're going to expect that. At least this time, we don't have any broken rocker arms. The engine is rotating. I just checked the timing, as you can see. This is the timing pin for the crankshaft, and here is the crankshaft working tool for the camshafts. As you can see, we are flat on the both sides on the cylinder head, so the timing chains should not be so much stretched, which this not always is so inductive, but we're going to keep it like that. There is some signs of water intrusion, as you can see here, where the injectors were sitting. It looks kind of disgusting, but this is what it is. I'm going to continue with the disassembly. It's pretty interesting to see what is the bearings on this mileage. Once again, this is the two turbochargers engines, which suffer much more from the single turbocharger engines. But still, let's see how it is inside. Okay, so I have opened up the timing chain cover. I have removed the big end bearings as usual. All of them, they are like a brand new one, especially on this mileage. I have seen on 300,000 or 400,000 kilometers on these engines, they still look pretty decent. So the timing chain is on 100,000 kilometers. So this is the most breakable chain of all of them, and yeah, it has a little bit of movement. It's not something excessive. For sure it's going to run more. I'm going to talk to the owner what he wants to do. This is how much the timing chain tensioner has opened up. Most of the time they open up much more than this. But yeah, for sure this chain has more life in it. But we're going to see, are we going to service it now or after 100,000 kilometers or 80,000 kilometers. We're going to talk to the owner, because once again this is a major service. It's a lot of labor involved, so probably service it now and just drive your car safely from now on for the next several years. Of course, this is the original timing chains. This is from 215. Hopefully you guys can see it on the timing chain guide. So 215. Yeah, on top of them, probably this is the original chains, because I believe the car was somewhere around that, the engine which came from. I'm going to remove the main bearings. We're going to see what is their condition, because this is the most crucial part of everything. As usual, I highly recommend to change the oil pump, because these springs inside are getting loose from the ears and you're going to have some issues with the oil pressure. And as we know what happens from this, probably change it and just keep it safe as much as possible with these engines. And everything removed. Here is the crankshaft. It looks decent, and yeah, I'm thinking that this engine is, yes, at around 100,000 kilometers by the looks of the bearings. The main bearings on the cylinder box side, as usual, on the cylinder box side, they're less worn out than the caps, because as you know, on the main bearings, on the caps, you're going to have much more load rather than on the cylinder box, and on the conrods is the opposite. On the conrod side you're going to have much more load, but still the bearings looks pretty good all along. The worst bearing on the main bearings is this, which is on the timing chain side, and here is on the caps. As you can see, we have wear on them, but it's not so bad. For sure this bearings was going to run for around 50,000 kilometers more at least, but while we are here, the owner decided that he wants to change it. He don't want to disassemble everything after 50,000 kilometers once again. Here is the bearings once again on the caps. As I told you, they look almost brand new ones. This is the bolts on the conrods. I'm not sure why, but BMW have decided to change these bolts with new ones, which I don't know why they have decided to do this, because this is the only thing that it's not making issues on these engines, and they have decided to change this. Why BMW? You want to start changing the bearings also on the conrods because they never fail? I'm not thinking that I'm going to start buying your new bolts. I know that these bolts are sold on the older engines, N57, and I'm going to buy once again the same bolts, and I'm going to torque them to the torque spec which I know is best. I have never had issue with this, so I'm not going to change. Actually, on the newer N57s, they already have changed the new bolts on the main bearings, because this is the new type of bolt. On the older N57s, the bolt is hex type head, but here they have used the new type. Like here it is. You cannot buy the old type actually. So yeah, this is actually the bolt for the conrods, which I have from different engine, and this is the new type of bolts. The old types probably I have somewhere, but yeah. Yeah, the old type, we can see it on this engine. As you can see with the hex bolts, this engine is 211, and that's why it's using the old type of bolts, and this is 215, and I'm not sure which year they have started using these new bolts, but doesn't matter, this is not relevant right now, because yes, we're going to use the new type bolts, because we're going to replace all of them. Also, the owner decided that he wants to change also the chains, the oil pump, everything that it's supposed to be done on roughly 200,000 kilometers, but because the owner don't want to open it up after 50 or 100,000 kilometers, he wants to be extra careful, and that's why he wants to change everything, so to be sure that the engine is going to be reliable. Still, just to be 100% sure, I'm going to measure once again the crankshaft tunnel. I'm going to measure the crankshaft for any abnormal wear on the journals, and yeah, this is going to be. Now, all the bearings on this engine should be green. Let me show you. Here it is on the cylinder block, as you can see, only choose, and on the crankshaft. For the camera, I'm going to see it, but once again, only choose. And on the other car, as you can see on this crankshaft, we have two yellow bearings, two ones, which doesn't matter. I'm not going to mix them, of course. This crankshaft has only green bearings on the cylinder block side and on the cap, and on the other engine we have two yellow bearings. 90% of the time we're going to have green bearings on the cylinder block side. So now I'm going to order everything. We're going to wait them for to come, and once again, while this is happening, I'm going to bring all the 12 injectors. So we're going to take the best ones from the all 12 injectors, also the turbochargers. So I'm going to bring the 4 in total turbochargers, the 2 small and 2 big turbochargers, and we're going to see which is best. And these ones we're going to use on the engine, which we're going to install on the X5 in the end. But yeah, everything takes time. So now I'm going to start doing stuff, ordering parts and sending things for testing. And when I'm ready to start assembling, I'm going to take the camera once again and show you. I know this video is going to be long one, but this is what it is. Okay, so I have took out all the parts that we have ordered. And yeah, we have 2 sets of bearings here and everything by 2, because once again we're doing 2 N57s, but this doesn't matter. So this engine, even on 100,000 kilometers, as you can see, the runners are not looking so good. So as you can see, camera is going to be hard to see it, but it has a lot of sluggish inside, like on the petrol direct injection engines. So yeah, I think I'm going to use the walnut buster so to clean up the runners, because they're looking pretty bad and the owner wants to be as good as new. So this is the only way that we can fix this. And yeah, on the other engine I have decided to remove the cylinder head, because the owner was struggling with some insane amount of oil consumption. And as I said on previous videos, most of the time the issue is the clogged up oil piston rings, as in this case. So all of them are clogged up. So on camera it's going to be hard to see it, but yeah, all of them are pretty bad. So I'm going to take the pistons in the ultrasonic, I'm going to clean them up. We're going to reinstall back the pistons, of course, with the cylinder head. And this should fix 90% of the oil consumption, hopefully. So all the new bearings are installed, as we can see, all of them, number 2. As stating on the cylinder block, once again, choose. So now I'm going to install the crankshaft, and we're going to install the new bearings on the caps, which are holding the main bearings on the top, and we're going to see what is going to be the clearance with the plastic gauge. Once again, this crankshaft is with, once again, only grip bearings. Yeah, it's going to be hard to show you on the camera, but as you can see, only number 2 here. So this engine has only green bearings, number 2s, and we're going to see what is going to be the clearance. I have already checked for distortion in the crankshaft tunnel. I have checked all the journals, I have checked for run out of the crankshaft, everything seems fine. So yeah, the last check we're going to do is to check the clearance with the capacity gauge, and if everything is okay, we're going to start assembling the timing chains and all the rest. Okay, so the measurement with the plastic gauge is done. Let me show you on the main bearings on the cups. Pretty identical, pretty much. Let me show you with the graph. So right now here we have roughly 38, 40. Pretty much on all of them we're going to have somewhere around that. So this is the most typical N57 once again, as all of them. The clearance most of the time is going to be around 0.40, which is perfectly in spec, which is pretty much actually in the middle range, which is pretty good. So yeah, I think it's going to be fine. Once again, only 2s on the cups as the crankshaft is stating. So now I'm going to clean up the plastic gauge on all of the journals, and I'm going to reinstall back the cups, torque them with the new bolts which are buried somewhere here. Yeah. Here is the new bolts with the part number on them, and we're going to torque them to, how much it was, let's see, 25 Newton meters plus 15 Newton meters, and after that 2 times 60 degrees, as we can see, replace screws. So let's do that and continue from there. So a little bit fast forward, all the bearings and the conrod cups are installed. I have installed all the timing chain components, all the OEM parts, tensioners. Here is the other one, all the guides, new chains, and pretty much everything is brand new OEM one. Also the high pressure fuel pump and the camshaft gear. I have rotated the engine 4 times, and as you can see, the high pressure fuel pump aligns with this notch here. Right now I cannot show you the timing, but I have checked it several times, so it's okay. So now the only thing that's left before closing up the engine is the oil pump, which we're going to use the OEM one, which is made in Italy, like all of them. So this is what we're going to use. But as you can see, we have 2 oil pumps, and interestingly enough, on one we're going to have this marking here, because this pump is once again BMW original pump, as you can see, this one and this one. But this pump is performance one. It's made from Jupa, I think it was called, or something like that. The owner of the other engine bought this pump because he wants to be extra secure about the rebuilt engine, and this pump is going to provide a little bit more pressure and flow, which I cannot show you right now, but the people that are making these pumps are claiming that it has bigger gears inside, which are going to provide this, plus better oil pressure valve, which is going to increase the oil pressure. By looking on them on the top, they are pretty much the same. Everything looks the same except the markings, of course, because they have opened up the pump also from behind where the vacuum pump is located. And here is the new oil pump installed with the chain. So pretty much everything is installed. Also don't forget this reinforcement plate. And yeah, we're now going to start reassembling the timing chain cover, open the valve cover, which we're going to install a new one. I'm going to change all the seals on this oil filter housing. There are 3 sets, I forget where they were. Yeah, this is one. This is the main gasket, and there are several more around the cooler, which we're going to replace. So this is the original BMW sealant, which we're going to use. So to seal up the timing chain cover and the open, which I have already cleaned up the open, so it is ready to be installed. Also I'm going to install the timing chain cover. I'm probably going to spray it just a little bit more, just to be a little bit cleaner than now, because I have cleaned up the sealant and probably some deposits got inside. Yeah, here I forgot a little bit. So yeah, when we closed up the engine, I'm going to show you how everything looks like. And yeah, this camshaft is from the other engine on which we have removed the pistons. We are at this point on which we're going to start installing the exhaust manifold, for which I want to say a few words. So here it is. This is the exhaust manifold which we have removed from the engine, and as you can see, it's machined, because previously I was trying to do this straightening by hand, but it turns out that it's pretty much impossible, because these exhaust manifolds are curving so much that it's nearly impossible to straighten them up by hand. So the only solution to do this is to use a machine like this, which I don't know what is the name of it. So we have done it on a machine like this, and this is how we straighten it up. So yeah, this is the only way to do it. 99% of the time these are curved a lot, so that's why I'm doing it like that. I have installed new studs here on everywhere, new timing chain, new valve cover, OEM one. Here it is, as we can see, BMW. We have installed new water pump with a new thermostat flange, OEM one, because we want to be reliable. We have tightened up the crankshaft pulley. Yeah, we have installed new bolts on the flywheel. The torque spec is 120 Nm. The oil-pan is installed with a new gasket on the oil level sensor. And yeah, now I'm going to install the exhaust manifold with this new gaskets. Yeah, we're not going to use the OEM ones, we're going to use Victorinox, good enough. You should not have issues using this, and I'm going to use new nuts. Once again, they are not OEM one, they are on L-ring in this case. It's not crucial if you use them or the OEM ones. OEM ones was not so expensive also, but not big of a deal. So yeah, we're going to start this, and actually I didn't show you. I have cleaned up the intake runners. So now we can see, actually I'm going to need a light. Now we can see finally the valves inside the ports, as we can see everywhere. So it's really time consuming and frustrating job to do this, to clean these ports on these cylinder heads. On diesel engines it's really hard, it's not like on the petrol ones. It takes a lot of time, especially on this engine, because it has 12 ports, not 6, because every individual valve has individual port. And I didn't remember that I say, but we had a lot of issue with the glow plugs on two of the engines, on the both engines, as we can see how the thread is looking like. It's completely destroyed. So we had several glow plugs looking like that, and I ended up rethreading all of the threads on the glow plugs. I know there is always possibilities, some debris to get inside the cylinders, but the only solution is to remove the cylinder head to do it, but I don't think it's worth it. Most of the time this is aluminum and it's not going to cause any damage to the cylinders. So I have rethreaded all the glow plugs. We're going to install new ones. We have bought these Bosch ones. We're not going to install the OEM ones because they're ridiculously expensive. And yeah, so pretty much everything here is ready to be assembled. So I have installed the new glow plugs. Now I'm planning to install the injectors, which we have bench tested them. Actually we have took the 12 injectors from the old engine, which failed, and let's call the new engine. So we decided to take the 6th best one of them. So this is the bench test for these injectors. Actually this is the set which is the best, and actually there is the other set which has one failed injector. Fortunately it was on the new engine, so I'm just a little bit worried about, because it was on cylinder number 1, and hopefully there will be not an issue, because I don't know for how long the engine have run with this failed injector. Hopefully everything is going to be fine, because we are not planning to remove the cylinder head. So now I'm going to install the known good 6 injectors, and we're going to proceed. And actually, as for the injectors, The glove box also require this anti-seize paste. Actually, this is originally from BMW. As we can see, this is the part number. So this is the recommended ceramic paste, I think it was called. No, it's just called grease for injectors, which it looks like a ceramic paste. As we can see, it is white. So I'm using this for the injectors and also for the glove box, so to be sure that the next time we're going to attempt to remove them, it's going to be much more easier than without it. So just a hint, use something like this. So something that I always do, because I had one or two issues with this, so always change these O-rings on the return view. They are small, you can neglect them, but if this fail, even one O-ring fails, here is going to be flooded with diesel, and you can imagine how hard it is after that to clean it up, and the smell is going to be terrible. I have issues with this several times, so from there on I started to change these O-rings every time. Now I'm going to install the alternator and the compressor from the other engine, because the engine came with open up compressor like this, and there is sand everywhere around the cylinder block. I don't know why. So for sure we're going to have some sand inside the compressor, so that's why I'm going to install the other one, because the probability of to be in better condition than this is bigger. I'm just worrying about that some sand can go inside in the high pressure fuel pump. Right now I have blocked it up, but previously it was completely open. The both lines, the both inlet lines which goes outlet lines which goes to the rail were opened, and I'm going to clean them as good as possible, but hopefully there were no sand which go inside the high pressure fuel pump. Finger crossed about this, but you never know. So once again I'm going to replace all the gaskets on the oil filter housing. This is the engine oil core, this is the gearbox oil core. Lately I have seen all of these oil filter housings with the broken thermostats here, but this, because it's on 100,000 kilometers, is alive. So not sure what is the lifespan of these thermostat housings, but probably when you get around 200,000 you're going to need to replace this. Yeah, this on 100,000 it's alive, but I have seen on a lot of these cars on 200,000s on which these are broke down. So that's why we're going to reinstall it. We're just going to replace all the gaskets. There are several of them. So you're going to have these ones which are sitting here, and these ones also. So in total you're going to have 4. Actually in some packages there are several of them, which here these squares are separate, but this is all the gaskets that we're going to require. Okay, so I'm pretty much ready to install the intake manifold. This is it. This is what we're going to install. I have sent it for a cleaning up. We're going to keep the swirl flaps on this engine because they have small to non-play on them. So this engine is on 100,000 kilometers. They should last at least 100,000 kilometers more. As you can see, this one is looking like a brand new intake manifold. So yeah, I'm now going to install it with new gaskets, of course. Actually this is for 20,000 kilometers intake manifold, and yeah, it's looking pretty good for 20,000 kilometers. It has almost to none debris inside. So pretty much the engine is ready to be installed back on the front axle, and after that lift up in the car. But before that, let me show you something interesting. The owner has decided that he wants to replace the front engine bushings, and to show you the difference between the old and the new one. So this is the left one, the driver's side one. You can see how much higher is the new one than the old one, and on the right one, on the passenger side, place them side by side. So you can see the difference, something like that. So these mounts are on 300,000 kilometers, and you can see that they are worn out. So good call for the owner to replace these mountings. And the engine is attached to the gearbox, as we can see. everything is tightened up, the gearbox, the front drive shaft, the hydro clutch. Yeah, I'm not sure how much this is going to last. We're going to see if this going to got worse. We're going to replace this crankshaft pulley. For now we're going to live with it. Hopefully it's not going to peel it out. And yeah, the only thing that's left before installing it back in the car is to install the turbochargers with the DPF. And yeah, to attach all the wiring on the top of the engine. So when I'm ready to install it in the car, I'm going to show you how everything looks like assembled. So I can make 100 more of this, but I always going to forget something. In this case I forget that the bigger turbocharger should be installed together with the exhaust manifold, which I have made wrong. I have installed first the exhaust manifold, and after that I realized that I need to install it with the bigger turbocharger. So I need to remove it once again, install the turbocharger to the exhaust manifold, and after that assemble everything together. So yeah, my bad. Rather than this, I'm now going to install a smart turbocharger. I'm replacing all the gaskets on the intake system, which means this O-rings here, there is one more here, this one on the side. Also going to replace these two on the both ends. I'm going to replace also these gaskets, which are going here, and probably there are some other gaskets. Yeah, this is the gasket which is for the outlet for the small turbocharger, for the oil drain, which of course I'm going to change. And I have replaced these two rubber hoses here and here with new ones, OEM ones. The routing of the vacuum lines, once again this vacuum line is impossible to be changed without removing the turbocharger. It's so deep inside that you're going to have no access, so make sure that this vacuum line is in good condition. In our case it is in pretty good, as most of them. I'm using the vacuum lines for the newer engine because they are much more fresher. So yeah, I think they're going to last for several more years. I don't remember where I ended up filming, but pretty much the engine and the gearbox is inside the chassis. We have changed all the bushings on the control arms. All of them are OEM ones, the hydraulic ones, these smaller ones. So all of them have been changed. We have changed the oil pan, and the only thing that left is to fill up the gearbox with fresh new oil. We have serviced the rear differential, the transfer box, and the front differential, all with OEM oils. It's kind of expensive, but if you want reliability, this is the only way to go. Some new nuts for the front axles, and I'm going to probably change all of the nuts on the control arms because most of them are damaged. So everything assembled, all the plastic trims, all the beauty covers. Now I'm going to start it up and show you how it works. Actually, I was mistaken that it's on 290,000. Let me show you on what mileage was the car before the engine failed. So the car is at 270,000 kilometers. So at this mileage the engine failed. So let's start it and show you how it works. It's almost cold, so let's see how it sounds. I think it sounds decent. The only fault code that we have is for the NOx sensor, which is before the catalytic converter. I think the only fault that we get. The car is running smooth, it's accelerating good. I don't have any other code than the NOx sensor. So yeah, I think it sounds smooth. Everything is filled up. OEM coolant. We have put new filter, of course. The fuel filter we haven't changed it because the car failed just after a servicing in BMW. So the fuel filter is brand new. We have changed only the oil filter. So yeah, I think the owner is going to be happy with his car. It should be as good as new, I believe, because everything is rebooted. The engine is at 100,000 kilometers, so it should be reliable for a long run. So okay guys, this was all about this N57 saga. This is why you're going to want to change your bearings and timing chains on time, because if you don't do it, you can go in this saga like the owner, which he had really bad experience. I don't know how much money and time it took to revive his car, but it was a lot, both the time and money. So think twice when you're thinking that you can go without doing this repair. Okay guys, thank you for watching and see you in the next video.